I can still remember the exact moment my best friend Alex suggested we have a pillow fight. We were 22, fresh out of college, and sharing an apartment that was too small and too expensive, but it was ours. That night, we'd been reminiscing about childhood sleepovers, those magical evenings when time seemed to stretch forever and everything was an adventure. Remember pillow fights? Alex had asked, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. I nodded, not expecting what came next, a couch cushion flying across our cramped living room and hitting me square in the chest. What followed was perhaps the most pivotal 20 minutes of our friendship, though I didn't realize it then. They say laughter is the shortest distance between two people, but sometimes it's also the last bridge before the gap widens into something uncrossable. Alex and I had been inseparable since sophomore year of high school, when we were paired as lab partners in chemistry class. He was the new kid, confident, athletic, immediately popular, while I was quiet, bookish, and perpetually overthinking everything. By all social hierarchy rules, we shouldn't have clicked, but somehow we did. Our first experiment together resulted in a minor explosion that turned both our eyebrows a strange shade of orange for a week. We laughed until we couldn't breathe, and that was it. Friendship sealed in the fires of a Bunsen burner accident. Our living room that night was bathed in the soft glow of the string lights we'd hung around the perimeter. Alex's idea, claiming they made the place look less like a depression den and more like adults live here. The space wasn't much, a second-hand couch with mysterious stains we'd covered with a throw blanket, a coffee table that wobbled unless you put a folded receipt under one leg, and a TV that was probably considered high-tech when we were in middle school. But it was home, and that night, with rain pattering against the windows and the distant rumble of the city below us, it felt especially cozy. We'd been watching some forgettable action movie, the kind where you can predict every plot twist but watch anyway, sharing a large pizza with half pepperoni, his, and half pineapple, mine, which he claimed was a crime against Italy. Our friendship had always been comfortable like that, different preferences but a willingness to share the same space. When the movie ended, neither of us moved to change what was playing. Instead, we fell into conversation about our college days, high school memories, and the various embarrassing phases we'd gone through. That's when Alex mentioned pillow fights, and before I could respond with something witty, I was defending myself from a surprise cushion attack. "Oh, it's on," I declared, grabbing my own ammunition from behind me. The pillow fight that ensued was ridiculous. Two grown adults leaping around a tiny apartment, vaulting over furniture, using the coffee table as both shield and platform. Alex had always been more athletic, but I was craftier, waiting for the right moment to strike. We were laughing so hard that at times we could barely stand, collapsing onto the couch or floor before rallying for another round. Let me explain why this matters. In adulthood, we rarely allow ourselves these moments of pure, unbridled joy. We're too concerned with appearing mature, with the responsibilities that pile up, with the unspoken rules of how grown-ups should behave. But in that pillow fight, we reclaimed something precious from childhood. The freedom to be completely present in a moment of silliness, to laugh without reservation, to play without purpose. At one point, Alex caught me off guard with a particularly well-aimed throw, sending me tumbling backward onto the couch. He followed through, diving onto the cushions beside me, both of us breathless and giddy. And that's when it happened, that moment when time seemed to slow and shift. We were face to face, closer than we'd been in years, maybe ever. His eyes were bright with laughter, a strand of dark hair falling across his forehead, and I felt something inside me shift and click into place like a key turning in a lock I hadn't known existed. I'd never thought of Alex that way before. Or maybe I had, in moments quickly dismissed and buried under the comfortable weight of our friendship. He was my best friend, straight, as far as I knew, and definitely not someone I should be having these sudden, confusing feelings for. But in that suspended moment, with our laughter fading into something quieter, more intense, I couldn't deny the flutter in my chest or the way my gaze dropped briefly to his lips. The moment stretched, elastic and fragile. I could have sworn something changed in his expression too, a flicker of confusion, perhaps recognition. But then he blinked, pushed himself up, and the moment shattered. "I think you've got feathers in your hair," he said, his voice slightly different than before, and just like that, we were back on solid ground. Except it didn't feel solid anymore. It felt like everything had shifted just a few degrees, enough to make the familiar suddenly strange. The rest of the pillow fight continued, but with less abandon. Our laughter became more measured, our movements more careful. We were suddenly conscious of space, of touch, of boundaries that had never needed definition before. I found myself overthinking every action. Was I standing too close? Was that joke too flirtatious? Had I always looked at him this way? Or was this new? And worse, was he noticing the change in me? You might wonder why one moment could unravel years of comfortable friendship. It's hard to explain unless you've experienced it, that sudden awareness that can't be unlearned. It's like seeing one of those optical illusions where once you spot the hidden image, you can never go back to your initial perception. I couldn't unsee what I'd realized about my feelings, and I couldn't stop wondering if he'd glimpsed it too. As our energy waned, we finally called a truce. The apartment was a disaster. Cushions everywhere, a lamp knocked askew, a half-empty pizza box that had somehow migrated from the coffee table to the floor. In the past, we would have collapsed side by side, shoulders touching as we caught our breath and laughed about the chaos we'd created. Instead, I found myself perching on the armrest of the couch, creating distance that felt both necessary and painful. Well, that was unexpected, Alex said, running a hand through his disheveled hair. There was a question in his voice, an uncertainty I wasn't used to hearing from him. Yeah, I replied, trying to sound casual. Guess we're not too old for pillow fights after all. Guess not. He was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. You okay? You seem, I don't know, different suddenly. This was my opportunity. I could have been honest, could have said something about the realization I'd just had. But fear gripped me. What if I was wrong about what I'd seen in his eyes? What if this changed everything between us? I couldn't risk losing him completely. Just tired, I lied. And I think I pulled something in my back when you knocked me onto the couch. I'm not as young as I used to be. He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. Right? Well, we should probably clean up before we step on pizza and make this place even more of a disaster. We moved around each other carefully as we restored order to the apartment, like dancers following steps to avoid collision. The comfortable silence we usually shared had transformed into something weighted with unspoken thoughts. I caught him looking at me a few times, his expression thoughtful, but he would quickly glance away when our eyes met. That night marked a subtle but unmistakable shift in our friendship. The laughter that had always come so easily between us became more deliberate, less spontaneous. Conversations that once flowed naturally now had moments of hesitation, of careful word choice. We were still friends, still shared meals and movies and inside jokes. But there was a new awareness between us, a careful distance neither of us acknowledged aloud. I started dating more in the weeks that followed, as if proving something to myself or to him. Alex did too, bringing home girls with increasing frequency. We'd pass each other in the hallway, exchange pleasantries about our respective dates, and retreat to our separate rooms. The pillow fight became an unmentioned milestone, the before and after moment in our friendship that we both recognized but never discussed. There's something particularly painful about watching someone you care for deeply continue to be in your life while simultaneously slipping away. Every shared laugh reminded me of how freely we used to laugh together. Every casual touch, a hand on a shoulder, the bump of an elbow, carried the weight of what was no longer natural between us. The physical distance was minimal, but the emotional chasm widened with each passing day. 3 months after the pillow fight, Alex announced he'd been offered a job in Seattle. It was a great opportunity, he explained, enthusiasm not quite masking what looked like relief in his eyes. I helped him pack. We threw a going-away party, and on his last night in the apartment, we ordered pizza, half pepperoni, half pineapple, and watched that same forgettable action movie. Neither of us mentioned the symmetry of the moment, the circular return to where things had changed. As the credits rolled, Alex turned to me. I'm going to miss this, he said simply. Miss you. Me too. I replied, meaning it more than he could know. There was a moment, brief but unmistakable, where it seemed like he might say more, might finally address the elephant that had been living in our apartment since that night. Instead, he reached over and messed up my hair, an affectionate gesture from our earlier days. Don't get too wild with pillow fights while I'm gone, he joked, but his voice held a note of something deeper. I forced a laugh. Wouldn't dream of it. Wouldn't be the same anyway. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and nodded slowly. No, it wouldn't. That night, lying awake in my room, I could hear him moving around the apartment, taking care of last-minute packing details. I wanted to go to him, to finally have the conversation we'd been avoiding, but I remained in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the pillow fight in my mind. The moment of realization. The way his laughter had faded. The look in his eyes that I still couldn't definitively interpret. The next morning, I helped him load the last of his boxes into the moving truck. Our goodbye was brief. A hug that lasted a beat too long, but not nearly long enough. Promises to call and visit that we both knew would gradually fade like so many long-distance friendships do. As he drove away, I stood on the sidewalk waving until his truck turned the corner, taking with it the person who knew me better than anyone and yet, in some fundamental way, hadn't known me at all. In the months that followed, we kept in touch sporadically. Video calls that grew less frequent, text conversations that sometimes lapsed for weeks. He seemed happy in Seattle. New job, new friends, eventually a new girlfriend, he spoke about with cautious enthusiasm. I was happy for him, truly, even as I felt the final threads of our connection stretching thinner. The pillow fight became a memory I returned to often, examining it from different angles like a complex puzzle I couldn't quite solve. Had there really been a moment of mutual recognition, or had I projected my own realization onto him? Had he left because he sensed my feelings and was uncomfortable, or was it really just about the job opportunity? These questions circled in my mind, unanswerable, without a conversation we would never have. What I've come to understand is that sometimes the most significant moments in our relationships aren't the grand declarations or dramatic confrontations. They're the quiet shifts, the subtle realizations, the laughter that fades a beat too soon. That pillow fight didn't end our friendship, but it revealed something that had perhaps been there all along, waiting beneath the surface of our comfortable camaraderie. Last week, almost 2 years after he moved away, I received a text from Alex. Remember that ridiculous pillow fight? It read, followed by a laughing emoji. My heart stuttered as I stared at the screen, unsure how to respond. After several attempts, I settled on. How could I forget? Pretty sure I still have bruises. His reply came quickly. I've been thinking about it lately. About a lot of things, actually. Can we talk sometime? Like really talk? I haven't responded yet. The message sits in my phone, simultaneously an ending and a beginning, a question and possibly an answer. I'm not sure what really talk means to him. If he's finally ready to acknowledge what happened between us that night, or if he simply misses the friendship we used to have. Either way, it represents something I thought was lost, the possibility of honesty, of connection, of understanding. What I do know is this. That pillow fight, as ordinary as it might seem, changed the course of my life. It taught me about the power of unguarded moments, about how quickly laughter can transform into something deeper and more complicated. It showed me that sometimes the people we think we know completely can still surprise us, and that we can surprise ourselves in how we respond to those revelations. If there's anything I've learned from this experience, it's that relationships aren't static things. They're living, breathing entities that grow and change with each interaction, each realization, each moment of connection or distance. The pillow fight didn't destroy our friendship. It simply revealed its capacity to evolve, for better or worse. And perhaps that's what all meaningful relationships do over time. They challenge us to grow, to see ourselves and others more clearly, even when that clarity brings pain alongside its wisdom. I don't know what will happen when I finally respond to Alex's message. I don't know if we'll ever recapture the easy laughter we once shared, or if we're meant to build something different now, something that acknowledges all the unspoken truths between us. What I do know is that I'm grateful for that pillow fight, for the joy it contained, for the truths it revealed, and for the growth it ultimately forced, even through the pain of distance. Because sometimes it's in the fading of laughter that we hear our own hearts most clearly. And sometimes, just sometimes, that clarity is worth everything it costs us. Total_char_count, 17,822.